team.
Hey there, this is Malorian. This is the Orc Tactical Team, and the question from today comes from another viewer. It comes from Mech Evil, all the way from Germany, and his questions are all based around the Super Mega Death Spells. So, yeah, several of them here, but they're all around the stuff, Pit of Shades, Purple Sun, Final Transmutation, Dwellers Below, Black Horror, Plague Wind, that type of stuff there, where some of them you just take a character test and die. Other ones, at least you get a ward save or something. But these seems to just like devastate units. Absolutely just devastate units. And he has, I don't know, 6 or so questions on them. Now, the first one here is about game balance. Do we really need these? And I think right up the answer is just yes. Really coming into 8th, the biggest thing I was worried about when I first saw the rules was, well, geez, Horde stars are going to be taking over. I looked at it. You only need to have 3 units, so you can take 2 small units and then just put everything else into one massive elite unit, have your characters in there, and just smash face and say, I don't care what you do. And this was really different as opposed to 7th, where, you have a Death Star? Well, whatever. I'm going to redirect you to the point that you don't get any points, or maybe even 2, I just redirect you and flank you and destroy you, and there you go. There is no stubborn crown. There is no steadfast. I just, if I flank you, you're probably screwed. But that all changed when it came to 8th. And the big thing that this did then is just make this not really happen. You don't really see a lot of those Horde stars, because if you do, and they go to a tournament, one of these mega super spells destroys the unit, and there you go. You just lost the game. A good example is, we'll go to play Anthony, right? Go to Brawler Bash. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get to play against Anthony. And right away, Purple Sun just destroys all the trolls. Now, that's 630 points, which was pretty massive. But there's even bigger ones you see out there, too. Especially with the Ogre Kingdoms right now, where they're running the Gut Star, where they have the characters in there. That one block can be easily over 1,000 points. And it's a pretty big deal. And these things can dominate the game until they come up against Mega Spells. Purple Sun. Well, there you go, Ogres, you're gone. It's just one of those things there that really keeps these things in check. And I think the only reason you even see the Ogre Kingdoms one is because they have that banner, or they can shunt it off to, you got to pick somebody else if I pass this little roll. So it really is doing what it needs to keep the game in check, and it is very needed. Question 2, is it fun to play? And, there's kind of 2 sides to this. Because obviously, if you are the guy having your army decimated by a super spell, it's really going to piss you off. Like, this is bull. But at the same time, you brought it on yourself. These people that get really pissed off are typically the ones that took the big, huge Death Stars or something like that, and like, oh man, you just destroyed my huge, massive Death Star. This is bullshit. Well, you took that in the first place. Second of all, there's ways to counter for it. Past that, we'll just take a dispel scroll. Worst case scenario, a lot of times you should have to try and stop the spell once, you scroll it, and then you go in. Sure, it could be irresistible force and stuff like this, but the odds are all there for you to try and stop it. So the tools are there. People who say that they don't have a chance, usually that's not the case. I know from the people using it, oh man, I don't actually get to enjoy these things because orcs and goblins, my dwarves, they don't do this type of stuff, right? They don't have mega spells. Well, there's Foot of Gork, but it's not quite this level. But I have been able to do the whole Dwellers Below with my Bretonnians sometimes. And I gotta say, it's pretty nice where, you took this big, huge unit. How am I going to crack that with my lances? Oh, now it's half the size, and some of your characters are dead. Ha! It's one of these things that can be really fun to do, and especially if you're doing a lighthearted game, even if it's happening to you, like I've had it so people do super spells to me, it's like, oh my god, look how many guys he killed, right? And it's not me flipping the table, it's enjoying the game. So you really have to take it for what it is, and for the most part, if you are feeling like you just decimated your army and it's ruining the game, you should be asking yourself why that actually happened and what you didn't do that you could have to actually protect yourself. I guess that kind of leads into this next one here, is to how to deal with them. And so really, like we already kind of touched on, you know, if you're ever taking a unit that's a lot of points, you better make sure that, or have it in your mind already, that these super spells can lay waste to them. Obviously, if you're low initiative, like my orcs and my dwarves, that means you're going to be a sucker for some of these things here. If you're something else, say like a big block of warriors, you still have to be worrying about that whole final transmutation and being turned to gold and all this stuff. But for the most part, whenever you have large amounts of points in one unit, you have to realize that is a weakness. I mean, even if it wasn't for super spells, if I take a whole bunch of points and I make a big 1,000 point block of black orcs or whatever it is, you know, I can face artillery. You know, artillery can be starting to do the same things. You start seeing, like, maybe you're going up against Empire or Bretonians with all their trebuchets or a dwarf army or something like that. They can blow those blocks apart really fast, and you can't just blame magic for that. You really do have to keep in mind that whenever you have all your eggs in one basket, you're going to be in trouble when that basket breaks. Other things, like I said, make sure you have magic defense. Have stuff in there like the Dispel Scroll. If you do not have a Dispel Scroll, I need to slap you, because that should be a 1+ in every single army because of spells like this or other ones too. It's so important to have. Past that, things you can do to try and deal with these spells is just get into combat as fast as possible so that some of these ones don't actually work, or even better yet, getting into combat to kill those mages. You know, and I guess another part with this is understanding the magic phase. If I'm going up against somebody with the Lore of Life, well, I have to understand that they might cast Dwellers at any time and balance those risks. You know, if they're going and trying to regrow a unit, and I say, well, wow, I really don't want him to get his knights back. Well, that might be worth it as opposed to one of your units being hit with a super spell, right? So save your dice to stop that one. Yeah, that's really is it. Next thing here is how to make them even deadlier. Well, really the best way to make these things the most deadly is a lot of times positioning, especially with the vortex spells. And so the way to get those to be really deadly is you need to find ways to make those casters mobile. Whenever you see like the mages on the flying mounts, these guys can be very deadly because they can just fly up and just blast you. That's the big thing with the Demon Prince, where he can just recklessly just fly into your lines first turn and send down a purple sun because he doesn't get a damn if he gets charged, right? Whatever. I'm in combat. That's where I want to be. So that stuff is really dangerous and really makes it deadly. For the range ones, such as the Dwellers Below and stuff like that, there really isn't ways to amplify those and make them more deadly unless you have access to other spells that change those characteristics tests. So, for example, like for the Little Wa, I have the Bad Moon where I can send it out and you have to take an initiative test or take a wound. You still get armor saves and stuff, but there's also another spell, Itchy Nuisance, that I can cast to lower your initiative. Well, clearly, if I lower your initiative and then send through the Bad Moon, that's going to hurt you a lot more. So, you know, combining with maybe Lower Shadow or whatever type of characteristic you're trying to lower, that can really help you. As well, I mean, if nothing else, lowering the leadership, right? And then saying, okay, well, I killed half your guys, take a test. Oh, you're fleeing? Oh, too bad for you. You know, it's one of those things there. So that's probably the main way to make it the most deadly. And then always making sure to weigh your odds and the risk whenever you're casting it, because even though you might kill more points going after this unit, if I go after this one, this is where all the characters are. And if I kill one of those characters, it's a game changer. The game's over. You know, the Vampire Lord's dead. Everything's going to crumble. So you really have to kind of balance it. Do I send after the ghouls with the Vampire Lord, or do I send it after the Grave Guard, right? So really try and balance that. It can even be a thing dependent on the situation, right? If I'm losing the game, all right, it's Hail Mary time, and I'm going for that thing so I can actually get a win. So really make sure to balance those things and making sure you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. The next one he has here is what wizards best to have them with, and because some of these things can be fairly risky. Probably the best thing to really talk about here with these mega spells is a lot of time you are throwing all 6 dice. If you're going for this, it's not like, oh, I'll throw a couple of dice at that. No, this is a big game-changing spell. You really want this to happen, and so you're normally 6 dicing this thing. And so whenever you're 6 dicing something, that also means that you have a really high chance of getting irresistible force as opposed to just throwing a couple of dice. And so you have to have somebody that is ready to deal with this risk. So either that means having your character up on a corner, which really applies to almost all the wizards, which could be on there. But at the same time, I guess another thing you have to really balance is, do you want to be on a level 4 or on like a sacrificial level 1? Because something that is a pretty valid strategy is rolling for your level 4 first, taking the spells that aren't the mega spell, and then when you roll the level 1, chances are you'll get a double or that spell anyway, and then he has the mega spell. And then you don't have to really worry about it. He can run off, throw 6 dice. You don't even care when he explodes. Other times, I mean, it used to be really easy, right? The Lizardmen had it pretty nice where, sure, if you explode, you kill all your Temple Guard, but whatever. I'll just go and do cupped hands and give it off to you. But they've lost that magic protection. Does that mean you don't cast super spells with your Slann anymore? Well, maybe if you are doing that as your battle plan when you're building your list, you just don't go and put him into Temple Guard, right? Maybe if your Slann is going to be a big death spell, mega death super spell caster, well, okay, maybe he's going to go around in Skinks or something like that, right? You have to change it. You might also, if you're going to really plan on doing these, to mitigate this again, is maybe you're going to take the staff that lets you re-roll the miscast result. This can also be a very big one for Bretonnians because your Damsel or Prophetess will be right in the center of that unit, and if it explodes, you're in a lot of trouble. So it could be that if you get that, re-roll that, try and get something else. But for the most part, the risks really are with you, and so I would say that if you have access to the mega spell, you're probably going to do it all the time, and you have to do the little minor things to really mitigate that risk. For my part, I go for Foot of Gork all the time. 6 dice, and what do? Do I take the staff to reroll? No. Do I take it on a little minor mage? No. I just put him on a corner, and I know that 1 in X number of games, I'm going to explode, and something really bad is going to happen. But hey, that's the game of dice. Deal with it. The majority of the time, I'm going to stomp the hell out of you, and it's going to really help me win the game. So that's what it really boils down to. Finally, he has one here, just asking what their future will be in 9th. And I haven't been looking at too much the rumors of 9th, but it'll be very interesting to see how it will change depending on what 9th is and what it brings it back to or how it moves it forward. If it was a change in a way where we are going back to seeing more smaller units because now, maybe Steadfast disappears or, flanking takes away Steadfast or who knows what happens. Like I said, I'm not one of these people that watches all the little rumors all the way up. I might hear this and that, but for the most part, I want to have the book in my hands. But, if units get smaller, super spells will be less important. So that definitely is a big thing there to keep in mind. Plus, who knows how things are going to change for dispelling, right? Maybe all of a sudden, again, you're going to see the scroll caddies that have 2 dispel scrolls, and then, you can stop 2 rounds of magic. Not that big of a risk anymore. So at this point here, really what's their use going to be in 9th? It's impossible to say. When 9th comes up, obviously I'll be doing a massive video on it to cover it. But for right now, all I can say is that it should be fine, but you never really know. If it really does get to be a thing where, man, it would be a worst case scenario going to 9th, where you get to recast spells. Let's say there's that change, where you can cast a spell more than once. That could be pretty scary. That could be a pretty scary world. But then again, GW should realize this. And so, logic being that they shouldn't actually then implement that because of how disastrous it would be. So either way, we'll see. And there you have it. So thanks for watching, and bye.